streaming live on Facebook with Neil deGrasse Tyson, with Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a pretty amazing astrophysicist. Neil is an author, one of the most popular scientific advocates in the world today. He studied physics at Harvard, got his PhD in astrophysics from Columbia University, hosted the Cosmos series, which is a modern reflection of Carl Sagan's older series of the same name, as well as the Star Talk series, which is ongoing. And Neil is currently the director of the Hayden Planetarium in New York City, where he's been serving since 1996. So thank you for being here, Neil, and welcome to Meditation Magazine.
Well, thanks for having me. I just want to add, not that you asked, that Hayden Planetarium was where I first discovered the universe when I was 9 years old, as a city resident of New York City, where we don't have a relationship with the night sky when you live in a big city with tall buildings. And back then there was a lot of smog, light pollution. And so the sky created for me in the planetarium dome became an indelible force operating on the rest of my life.
Wow. You know, I actually can really relate to that. I grew up in Long Island and visited the Hayden Planetarium many times as a child. And it really inspired me to be, to sort of nerd out about the universe.
Yeah. It's a nerd safe space.
Yeah. You know,
and I bet you remember your very first trip there. I bet you remember that.
Yeah, I really do. I remember just those, just the feeling of awe about.
Think of it as, I think for many, it's many people's first virtual reality experience, because the lights dim, the stars come out, and you're transported in ways that no other thing that you could have done at the time would have enabled. So I think that's why people's first planetarium moments are remembered for a lifetime.
Yeah. So I definitely want to get into more of that in a few minutes. I just want to introduce some things here. So first, for anybody watching, you should know that this interview we're going to take excerpts and we're going to use them for the Universe issue of Meditation Magazine, which is all about our oneness with the universe, our connection with the universe. It's going to be available in thousands of stores, 20-something countries around the world. And if you're a subscriber in the US or in Canada, you're gonna receive it in October. And if in other countries, probably in November. And if you're not subscribed yet, you should go to meditationmag.com/subscribe so that you can get our print magazine. So I'd also like to introduce the thesis sort of that I have that I want to explore during this interview. So modern meditators, we kind of live at the intersection between science and mysticism. And while mystics and scientists may sometimes seem to be at odds with each other, we also have more in common than we may realize. We're all nerds at heart. We look deeply into the universe and the nature of reality, and we enjoy these explorations of existence. So in those ways, we're kind of brothers in arms, mystics and scientists. So I want this conversation to explore that intersection between science, meditation, and mysticism. Where do we converge in our realizations? Where do we diverge in our epistemologies? But most importantly, let us marvel together in awe at this epic and beautiful universe and hopefully enjoy the ride. Okay.
Well, that's quite a preamble to
Yeah.
Plus that's a lot to cover in a half hour. All right.
We'll
see how far we get. Okay.
So we'll try to roll quickly. But first, I actually wanted to just touch on some recent events before we get into the heavy stuff. The James Webb Telescope, I'm so excited about it. I know you're excited about it. I'm going to switch us into immersive view for a second, so we can have a picture of it, a picture of the. Here you go. This picture.
Oh yeah.
Look at that.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, we're talking in the universe.
Well, you're right there too. Wait, you're on this side of me. There you go.
You can see me.
There we go.
There,
right. Okay.
It's cool, right? I think I love Zoom. It has all these weird features. But the universe, that we can see through the James Webb Telescope, we're now seeing so much more and in more detail. Like, how do you feel about this? I know you've talked about all the cool things about the James Webb Telescope, but how do you feel about the fact that, we can see so much more clearly now?
So I'm going to answer it in a way you might not be expecting, right? I would say since the Industrial Revolution, maybe late 1700s, certainly into the 1800s, and then into the 1900s, 20th century, exploration and discovery and the pace that has unfolded has basically been exponential. And what that means is, at any given moment, if you jump into that timeline at any given moment, everyone is saying, look at how advanced things are, look at how detailed it is, look at how far we've come. And that is the hallmark of an exponential curve. Everybody thinks they're living in a special time. So correct. I will bask in the majesty of these images. This one is the Carina Nebula, which is the infrared capabilities of the James Webb Space Telescope, enables it to peer deep within, I gotta use that a deeper voice, deep within, if you're gonna say that word, you might as well ride it with everything for it. The infrared enables you to probe deep into the gas clouds and see stellar nurseries that at this stage of their development are cloaked, shrouded by the very gas cloud that is birthing it. And you would not otherwise be able to see that were it not for the exquisite infrared detection abilities of this telescope. And so, oh, and by the way, just, I guess I can point to it, can I?
Yeah,
Almost. So the
I can make it
spiky,
bigger so you
the
can
spiky
point to it.
objects are simply stars that are much closer to us in our field of view. And, oh, can we see it now? Yeah, it's just right
Yeah,
there.
here, I'll make you bigger. There you go.
Even bigger? No.
Yeah.
Whoa. So that one, and then there's one above my head there, and there's some over your head as well. Okay, take me down again. I'm too big.
Yeah, okay. Here we go. All right, there we go. Now we're
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So those are those spikes, they look almost biblical, right? Because as stars are portrayed in frescoes, certainly the Star of Bethlehem, but that is an artifact of what occurs in the imaging. When the starlight enters the telescope, the volume of the telescope, it actually diffracts around what we call the spider mounts of secondary mirrors and tertiary mirrors and this sort of thing. So as the light moves into the hardware of the telescope itself, if the light is bright, it's susceptible to those artifacts of the telescope. And that's why the spikes are in exactly the same place for each object in the image. So anyhow, point is, yes, this is amazing and it's beautiful, and it's way better than the Hubble telescope. This is doing in just a few release images what Hubble struggled to get to perfect over many, many years. However, when Hubble came out and it was giving us images, everyone was saying the same thing about Hubble. This is my point. Okay. Yes, I will bask in the majesty of the data of the James Webb Space Telescope in just the same way I did when the Hubble telescope was finally fixed and was producing perfect images, just the same way I did when the 200-inch Palomar telescope in California was producing these spectacular images of galaxies and nebulae. That was back in the 1950s and 60s and early 70s, because that's how old I am. So be glad not simply that you are living in a special time, but that we are living overall in a time of exponential increase in cosmic scientific knowledge broadly, especially cosmic knowledge.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not even that concerned about whether our time is special or not. I'm more like just, wow, this is awesome. You know what I mean? I kind of like just try to enjoy it as we go along.
And by the way, I'm glad you're using the word awesome in this context, because the next generation, when you hear them use the word, it was like, it would be awesome if you could pass the salt. It's like, no,
I would be awe-inspired by this passing of salt.
Save it for when we walk on Mars. All right.
Exactly.
You need some vocabulary for that.
I'm looking forward to that. I've been watching For All Mankind. It's a really good show.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been seeing that, but it's great.
I've saw bits of one. I know all about the series though.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to shift to talking about oneness, okay, the oneness of the universe. And this is something that mystics have been talking about for thousands of years. Scientists are talking about it. And I want to find the commonalities here. So you're a person who is well known for talking about that we are stardust and we are atomically connected to all the atoms in the universe. So can you tell me what you mean by that?
Oh, sure. So I think one of the great gifts of modern astrophysics to civilization was the discovery. This is in a research paper published in the 1950s. So right mid-century, it was a discovery that the elements that we see on the periodic table, the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, silicon, iron. You just look at all those, you say, where did they come from? I remember asking my chemistry teacher in high school. He said, well, we find them in the earth. And I said, well, where did they come from before that? He didn't have an answer. He should have and could have, he just didn't. I'd later learn, yes, we astrophysicists have figured this out. These elements are forged in the cores of stars, short-lived stars, that in their thermonuclear fusion, they merge light atoms to make heavy atoms. The sun is doing this now, merging hydrogen atoms to make helium and releasing energy, because the helium atom that comes out of it weighs less than all the hydrogen atoms that went in. Where did that mass go? It was converted into energy. And right according to E equals mc squared, the Einstein's equation that we all have heard. And so there's some stars that continue this, hydrogen to helium to carbon to nitrogen, and it goes all the way down the periodic table. And then the star explodes, scattering this enrichment across the galaxy. And that enrichment infuses these gas clouds that are about to make a new generation of stars and planets that orbit them. And the planets are made of these heavy ingredients, and so is life. And so you ask, where did we come from? We came from the stars.
Yes.
And for me, the most poetically accurate way to say this is, not only are we alive in the universe is alive within us.
Yes.
We're not just separate and distinct. We are one and the same. And so often people want to invoke the word special for being different. Yeah, I'm special because no one else is like me. I have an opposite view. I say we are all special because we are one and the same of the stars in the canopy of the universe.
Yes.
And for me, that's uplifting. It is a cosmic perspective that does the opposite of what so many other cosmic perspectives do. You know, most of them put you in your place. You're not that big, you're not living that long, but really, we are a participant in the great unfolding of cosmic events. And as Carl Sagan once mused, we might be thought of as a way for the universe to know itself. Because we're not just self-replicating life, we have a consciousness, but not only that, probably many animals have consciousness, surely most do, but we also have curiosity about things that go beyond our own survival. And that curiosity takes us into the universe. And upon doing so, we can end up not only asking, but answering questions about origins, about fate, about the future.
Yeah.
And so I celebrate this fact.
Yes.
That the powers of the human mind can take us to where we are today, and we're still going, which is something I look forward to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that very eloquent expression of oneness with the universe.
Sorry, I'm giving long answers here. I can tighten them up.
We'll tighten it a little because we don't
I'll tighten it a little, I promise.
I have a lot of questions. Okay, so that was beautiful though. Thank you. So that's one way. First of all, I love the Carl Sagan quote. We are a way of the universe for the universe to know itself. It's interesting that Alan Watts, who's a sort of mystic of the last generation, used very, very similar words. And I think that the two of them, one of them looking through a telescope and seeing it outwardly, and one of them looking sort of inwardly through meditation, both kind of seeing the same truth. That's something that I want to explore more later in our conversation. But for now, I want to focus on the scientific perspectives on oneness. So you mentioned E equals mc squared, that the matter is converted into energy, and energy is converted to matter, and matter is energy, right? Because matter is just energy condensed to a slow vibration.
Well, yeah, not to get pedantic, and I hate getting pedantic or semantic.
Oh, please, pedantic, I love it.
No, it's semantic is the word I was looking for. But mass is the fundamental thing. Okay, and mass can manifest as matter. Mass can manifest as energy. That's how you would think of that. Okay. And so when we ask what's the mass of that object, you're going to add up the mass, you're going to add up the matter contents, the particles it's made of, and you're going to add up the energy to give you the
Okay.
total mass of what you're describing.
Got it.
So yes, it manifests, and you can convert matter into energy and back and forth. And that happens all the time in the universe, even if it's unfamiliar to your everyday life.
Okay. So if matter and energy are just two forms of mass, right? And they're kind of this universe is really just one big field of mass, right? Does that make
Yes,
sense?
that's yes, manifested in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
um, creating and destroying within its own volume.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you want to, that's as one, that's the most oneness aspect of this as you can.
Yeah.
If you want to be totally about one, that
Yeah.
would, there you have the entire universe is
It is.
matter, motion, and energy just
Yeah.
manifest.
Yeah, matter, motion, energy, and really, like you were saying, it's all mass. Is that what you would call? Is that's it's the
Yeah,
universe's
it's
one
not,
field of
it's
mass?
true, but it's not always helpful,
Hmm.
because when the mass manifests as energy, it does different things than when it manifests as particles.
Right. So we
So
can break it down, right? We can break it down into its component parts,
yes,
but we could also see it as this oneness. So we can have both perspectives,
you
right?
can, I guess scientifically, you want to
Mhm.
have a point of view. Uh, Point of views are helpful when they give you insights into something you can calculate,
Hmm.
something you can predict, something you can understand that has just happened.
Hmm.
But to just run around and say we're all just one thing,
Hmm.
it might give you sort of some spiritual fulfillment, but you
Hmm.
can't go out and say, okay, I'm going to use that information to land on the moon.
Right, right.
That's
I get you. And this is actually a really great point. I mean, maybe there are multiple things that we can get out of different perspectives on the universe, right? We can get, like you said, spiritual fulfillment. You could call it like an emotional kind of connection with the universe by realizing that we're one with it. Not just an emotional, it's kind of like there's a transcendence there.
yeah,
It's something that makes us feel infinite, and it's something that it's a very powerful feeling.
yeah. It can,
Um,
and provided you not only know it, but sort of think about it in a very positive way. There's a lot of energy that destroys things, right? So I think you want to take the right slice through that pie and reflect on it in ways that do leave you at the end of the day smiling rather than crying.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, I wanted to just go into sort of like a little reflection on this, because I think that we can get so much knowledge from science, but I think also is that knowledge can inform our meditations. They can inform our reflections on reality when we look inside of ourselves. So if we didn't know that, the universe is one giant field of mass, it takes a while to get to the conclusion that everything is one. Like from the mystic's perspective, it can take years of meditation to realize this through other means. But when we realize through science that it's all one field of mass, then we can just meditate on that for a moment and really feel that transcendence. So would you want to just close your eyes with me for a moment and just
Oh, sure.
feel that? Let's just take a moment just to feel the body sitting here. So you feel like all the sensations in your body from the top of your head to the bottoms of your feet and your palms of your hands. You feel your whole body sitting here. And this that we, feel as sensations, like our arms and our legs, we call them sensations. We're experiencing something, we're experiencing the body. And if we just take a moment to realize that this body is mass, and the air around us is mass, and everything around us in the whole universe is mass, we can feel where does the edge of me end and the beginning of the universe begin. We can feel that we are just part of this infinite or gigantic field of mass, just sitting here experiencing that. Well, it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to feel it. And that's why I like to bring these realizations of this. We are part of this field of mass that we call the universe. to bring it into that feeling space and just feel it. And just blinking our eyes back open, coming back here into this conversation.
So I like the idea that, well, where do I end and the universe begin? And there are other factors here, by the way. There are gravitational fields, there are electric fields. The fields is an idea put forth by Michael Faraday in the middle 1800s. Because think about it, you can't see a field. You can see what the field does. And we all did this as children. You'd sprinkle iron filings on a magnet and you can see the iron filings line up. Well, how did they know what's going on? So fields exist and they're real. And we have gravitational field, not external to our body. It actually permeates our body. And so this idea that where do I end and the universe begin? I like that concept. Just meditationally, I think it's a powerful idea.
Yeah, and I think that just when we bring like these realizations into just closing our eyes and just feeling it, it can really enhance our appreciation for these scientific discoveries. The same way that the scientific discoveries can enhance our meditations. It kind of goes both ways. You know what I mean? That's why I say that mysticism and science can go hand in hand in certain ways. So, okay, I wanted to shift into the spirituality of science. You know, I feel like we've kind of covered this actually. So but spirituality is a word in its own. Like mysticism is one thing, but spirituality is another thing. Do you feel like there's a certain kind of spirituality that can be felt through the practice of science?
Let me answer that in a reverse way. All right. So I spent a lot of my time in graduate school ascending mountaintops, okay, where the telescopes are. You know,
Cool.
why do astronomers go to mountains? Because that's where the telescopes are. Okay. Who's the guy who robbed banks? Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is, right? There's certain blunt, true answers. And often it involves what felt like almost a pilgrimage, because the mountains are not nearby. They're certainly not near cities. So you have to fly to some place and then take, you know, a bus and then some vehicle up the mountain. Then you have to, this is in my day, things are a little different today, but in my day, then you'd have to flip your living so that you go nocturnal. Then you have this relationship with a telescope. It's you, this eye to the universe and the universe. And you collect data on, not digitally in modern times, of course, it's done digitally. And then you go back home with this this disk of data, and then you decode the operations of nature. What I can tell you is when I'm on the mountaintop, especially on some occasions where clouds roll in, and if the mountain's high enough, it's above the clouds, right? And if the moon is out, the moon is illuminating the tops of the clouds. And so it's you, the tops of clouds, the moon, and the rest of the universe. It's like you're on Mount Olympus or something where you don't even know if there's an earth below you. You're just floating. Wow. And having been a fan of the universe since I was 9, to be in that moment, I don't know how else to describe it other than it being intellectually spiritual. In the sense that I wasn't thinking, well, how many stars are there and what are they made of? And it wasn't so analytical as much as it was emotional. Yeah. And of course, people have their own way they use the word spirit. And like I said, I don't like arguing word definitions, but I think spirituality, which has historically been owned by organized religion, in recent decades, I think has escaped that boundary. And now people will say they're spiritual, but not religious, because I think they have some feeling of their place in the universe. And from that feeling and from those thoughts, they derive pleasure. So I'm happy to think of the word spiritual in that context. And in that context, I can say without hesitation, I have felt that about the universe.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I want to go into some questions, like deep questions about the universe, which we can hopefully do like a sort of quick lightning round kind of questions.
Okay, I'll keep shortening my answers. Okay, sorry.
They're beautiful.
You came too curious, you know. You can't come to a 30-minute conversation and have 80 questions, right?
I know, but I have so many questions for you, Neil. Okay. So, okay. Do you see the universe as finite or infinite?
Yeah, so I follow where the evidence takes me. So it's not what I believe to be true, is what does the evidence say? Our horizon is finite.
Hmm.
In the same way, a ship at sea can only view to its own horizon. But if it keeps traveling, it sees a different horizon than it did a few moments ago. And
Mhm.
so does the person in the ship say, wow, it's ocean in every direction. The ocean must be infinite?
Hmm.
No, they think there might be land. Okay, fine. Do they say, I see a horizon in every direction? Is that the end of the ocean? No, they're not saying that if they have any experience at all. We do not know how big the actual universe is beyond our horizon. Could be infinite
Hmm.
for all we know. But to our horizon, light has been traveling since the Big Bang, and the light we see is nearly 14 billion years old.
Okay.
So the universe is itself like a time machine.
Yeah. So I like that you have that agnostic view, where it's, we can see to where we can see, and then who knows, maybe after that it's infinite. We don't know.
Yeah, of course. That's right.
So yeah, I appreciate the agnosticism, as like a skeptic myself. So I wanted to ask you another question. So we talk about the Big Bang being 14 billion years ago, and that it has been expanding since that, whatever. So this is the theory of that we use in cosmology right now. But where did the Big Bang come from? Why did it happen instead of nothing? Why is there anything instead of nothing?
Well, I'm happy to answer that.
Hmm.
We don't know. That's the answer. It's one of the great frontiers of modern cosmology.
Mhm.
And there is some good reason to think that the Big Bang might be one of multiple bangs that unfolded out of a multiverse.
Mhm.
That's where the multiverse is, this collection of universes, ours among them.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, it just really shifts the question, what started the multiverse, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not
Yes.
putting this as the end all answer. I'm saying the beginning of our universe, even if known one day,
Mhm.
just pushes your question back a notch.
It's
And
true.
so these are frontiers of research.
It's an infinite regression, right? We can't really
Well,
think
we don't
about
know.
that.
I
Yeah,
I, I don't know.
yeah, we don't know. I don't know. There's that mystical thing of it's turtles all the way down. I don't know if you've heard that
Yeah, of
story.
course, of
Yeah.
course. Uh-huh.
So yeah, we just it's very difficult for us to contemplate it. Maybe science will figure it out. Maybe it won't. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I don't have a.
Yeah.
I mean, all
But
frontiers are difficult. That's why they're sitting on the frontier and unsolved. But
yes,
I don't fear those answers or those questions.
right.
It's very natural. By the way, how what began Earth? Well, we know how Earth formed,
Hmm.
but there was a day that was a big. Was the Earth always here, or did God make it in 6 days?
That's true.
What?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
just the way we.
origins is actually been a very fertile uh, path of investigation in modern astrophysics. We know the origin of Earth and our sun, and James Webb is going to help us get the origin of galaxies, right? And so this origins question, as challenging as it is not intractable.
Right, but we can know the origin of the Earth because it's a part of the universe. It's come like, and we can maybe know the origin of the universe, maybe even. But
As part of the
what
multiverse,
about
yes.
yeah? But what about yeah? At the end of that regression, right at the foundation of reality, we say, okay, what started anything? Why does anything exist? Maybe we don't know that now. Maybe science will figure it out eventually. But there's this sort of ancient mystical perspective, which I think is at the foundation of what Abraham saw when he talked about one God, and what Buddhists saw when they talk about oneness. And what I think that is that foundation, we won't use the words God or things like that to label it, but is that there must be some aspect of reality, some law of nature that allows for anything to exist at all. Maybe that's the most fundamental law, because the Big Bang couldn't have happened if there wasn't a law of reality that allowed for anything to exist in the first place,
Based
right?
on my read of the history of science, I
Hmm.
will never use the word must
Hmm.
in trying to understand a cosmic frontier, because you're putting a bias on it. You need to have some prime force to begin things in order for you to feel comfortable about your philosophy of how the world works. I have divorced myself from such requirements. Maybe the universe always was. Maybe the death of a universe births another universe so that it's cyclical. And if it's cyclical, then it was always cyclical.
But
It could be
in
any of
either
these.
those,
I will
in either
never
of those,
say it must be one thing or another.
but in either of those scenarios, if everything has always existed, or in the cyclical universe, like Roger Penrose talks about the cyclical universe theory or whatever, cyclical cosmology, in any of those cases, there has to be some nature of reality that allows for things to exist, right? Because if there wasn't, then nothing would exist. It has to be a fundamental law.
Okay, so you get into a good old problem here, where can a system of laws exist as a contained unit describing everything within the system without some system of laws outside of it giving meaning and purpose and existence to those laws themselves? So that's an interesting sort of philosophical
Well, I don't know
frontier.
if it has to be outside of it.
Well, in Goodell's theorem, it has to be, you have to come in from the outside and say, here, it's a throwdown, it's a mic drop, it's here, this is what, start with this, and then everything can work within the system. The system cannot define itself without a completely arbitrary declaration from the outside saying what those laws need to be. And so this is the Gödel incompleteness theorem. I paraphrased it for this example, but so you can go there. I'm just saying, I'm not requiring that of the universe. That's all. I'm letting the universe be how it reveals itself to us. And oh, and by the way, there are people who say, well, God did it. And well, I'll say, well, then who created God?
Right,
And
exactly.
somehow they're completely content with the answer, God always was.
But see, that's what I'm saying, is that when people say God did it, right? If they created, basically God that people think of nowadays often is like this sort of old man in the sky, right?
The monotheism God, yeah.
So who created that? Okay, so that still lends itself to, but so the old man in the sky is sort of, you're seeing it as separate from the fabric of reality itself. But if
except they should respond to the question, who created God? And their answer in every time I've posed that question is, God always was. So they're completely content with saying God always was, but not content in saying the universe always was. And that's not fair.
Right, I agree with you, and I think that's why there are mystics within even religions that see God as synonymous with the universe. And I'm not just talking about our
the
big
Spinoza, for example. And by the way, Spinoza's God, if you want to refer to it that way, was the laws of physics and the laws of nature are the manifestation of a cosmic God, not the bearded man in the sky, not the one who cares who you sleep with, or what your Supreme Court does. It's just the laws of nature as we discover them are the manifestations of a divine presence. And that, by the way, is completely compatible with science. Whatever science says, you're happy that God, we're cool here. And it's when God starts becoming a little more participatory in your own life's conduct, that things get really messy, and one group wants to create rules that constrain the freedoms of another group who don't believe the same thing. So that's where things get really weird.
No, I totally agree with you. But let's not get into that, because that's a whole can of worms. But I love that you brought up Spinoza. I actually have a quote from him that I wrote down, that what he described as God is the indwelling and not the transient cause of all things. So not some God that just created the universe and then grabbed some popcorn to watch the drama unfold, but basically the fundamental laws of physics, like you're saying, that allows for all of this to exist. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with that fundamental law of reality. I think that allows for anything to exist. I think that's what Spinoza saw as God. And I wonder, if I think that to me, that's something that must be there, but I guess I do appreciate your agnosticism about that.
Well, our version of that would be the unified field theory.
Yeah.
So all laws of nature that we have discovered here on Earth, which have experimentally been shown to apply across space and across time, because as I said earlier, as we look out in space, we're looking back in time and we see the same laws of physics manifested. All our thinking today suggests that in the very first moments after the Big Bang, just at the beginning, all forces of nature were one. And as the universe cooled, these forces of nature separated out until today we have, count them, 4 forces of nature. And but you go back in time, there's 3, then 2, then 1. And that one force of nature would be the unified field theory, which is the holy grail for many physicists. And I think that comes closest to what you're describing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for putting that into context and the scientific terminology. I appreciate that. So I know we only have a couple more minutes, so I just wanted to end on something that I think is really important for the spiritual community.
I'll give really short answers if you want to squeeze in some more questions. Okay.
Okay, great.
Go.
This is really important for the spiritual community. I've heard physicists talking about how some people in the spiritual community or the mystical community, whatever, misuse quantum physics and maybe misstate it or misunderstand it. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to maybe, can you think of any examples of that you would like to try to not refute, but at least clarify for our readers?
So I think what's going on here is quantum physics, which is one of the most successful theories of the universe ever discovered. And by the way, we are in the centennial anniversary of the discovery of quantum physics. Most of it happened in the 1920s, and Nobel Prizes all around for each little bit of discovery that contributed to this whole understanding of the universe. Quantum physics has really weird, wacky, spooky things that are real, but completely defy anybody's common sense, anybody's classical understanding of how the world works or how the world should work. But it's true nonetheless, experimentally verified. So what has happened is you get people who see the spooky stuff in quantum physics, which we don't have a classical explanation for. We just say, oh, the particle pops into existence and it pops out of existence. We know the frequency with which that happens and how it happens and how much energy it has, but we can't predict exactly that particle. There are mysteries there. There are people who take those mysteries and staple them to other mysteries and then declare that they've actually solved a problem. And so that's not how, no, we don't fully understand consciousness. So there's something else we don't understand. They say, well, let's explain that with consciousness, but you don't understand either. So to take one to explain the other and bask in this is really tentative grounds.
Yeah.
To try to base a foundation of reality on.
Yeah, there's a specific thing that I think people often use in the spiritual community, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Yeah.
They use it to say that because when we measure a particle, it affects the particle. It actually changes what you're seeing. The measuring affects the measurement. That therefore mind controls the universe or controls.
Right, so that's
reality.
another example of consciousness and quantum physics putting them together to try to come up with an explanation. Let me put that to bed quickly. Okay, this is called the observer phenomenon. The particle is doing something when you're not looking at it, and then you look at it and it does something different. And so that's been misunderstood and misapplied and misused, but I can clarify it very easily. And people say your consciousness does it, so therefore your consciousness affects the universe. So no, unfortunately, no. So what's actually happening is, how do you know the particle is there? Well, so you look at it, but still, no. How do you know it's there? Oh, some light has to come from the particle to your eye or to your camera, to your detector, because otherwise you have no information about it. It's completely dark, okay? So I turn on the lights to take a picture, and for small enough particles, it kind of happens for us, but we're too big for it to be measured. Make us really, really little so that we're just particles. turn on the light in the room, the light hit, because you want to take a picture, the light hits the particle and kicks the particle into a new state. And so now you want to look at the particle, it was there before you turn on the light, and now it's doing something else. It has nothing to do with consciousness, and everything to do with, you don't know what the particle is doing until you shine light on it.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
so it's a
thank you.
matter of, and you need the light for your eyes, you need the light for a detector, you need the light for any measurement. And so that's what's going on. And it would happen with or without your brain.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that that's a really important thing for people to understand in the spiritual community, because I think that it is misunderstood
Yeah,
in a lot of circles.
deeply misunderstood. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my last question, because we have to wrap this up. And it's really comes down to where do we diverge, the mysticism and science? And I wonder, scientists often think that we can know everything, right? Like you said on Russell Brand's podcast that
You don't leave any stone unturned. Russell Brand podcast.
Epistemology right here. So
wow.
So the history of, so you said on Russell Brand's podcast, the history of what it is to know stuff does not support the contention that there are things that are unknowable, which I love that. I love that quote.
Yeah, I would repeat that even now. Yes.
But couldn't this all just be a dream? Couldn't this whole thing that we're talking about and measuring and doing science about, couldn't we all just be doing this in the dream world?
In whose dream?
Some kind of dream world?
Whose dream?
Who knows? My dream, your dream, the universe's dream, some collective dream.
Okay, so this is the difference between establishing what might be your personal truth. Okay, you feel some way about something. Jesus is your savior. That's your personal truth. Muhammad is the last prophet on earth. That's this other people's personal truth. And then there's an objective truth. An objective truth is what science is in the business of determining. An objective truth is I make a measurement and I get an answer. You're my competitors. I don't trust anything you do. I'm gonna build a better apparatus, and you do it and you get the same answer.
Yeah.
And then someone on another side of the world with a different electrical current out of their wall plugs in their machine, they get the same answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize, oh my gosh, we're onto something. We have a new emergent objective truth about how the world works. Those truths are true independent of who measures it, what you think about it, or what your belief system is. Hence the quote, science is true whether or not you believe in it. It's not all science. On the frontier, science is very contested. But once it moves its way into the experimentally verified realm, it is true, and your opinion and your thoughts won't matter.
Right.
E equals MC squared goes into bombs and weapons.
Yes,
okay?
I know. I love that.
By the way, it's not just somebody's dream.
And that's why I love science so much, because it is objective. It helps us get to Mars. It helps us create internet. It helps us do all these things. But what if all that stuff is happening in some sort of collective dream, or like the
so no, we've already been there. What you're talking about is we're living in a simulation. There's some nerd alien in his parents' basement, hasn't moved out yet, who programmed our world. Okay, if that is the case, they programmed our world with rules. Conservation of momentum, a particle count, energy equals MC squared. And we're discovering the rules that this snot-nosed alien put into our universe. And maybe they can hit delete and then we all just disappear tomorrow. Sure, that can happen. I cannot rule that out. Okay, great. I can say it's a fascinating universe the alien created. If that's...
Yeah, no, definitely. So in that case, we're discovering the rules of this sub-universe that's within the universe of the alien that created it.
Correct. And we're a simulated universe in that computer. Correct.
And then could we ever know the nature of the reality of the universe that the alien is in?
So this is the Truman Show, right? So you'd ask, what happens if I keep exploring this world that I'm in that the alien created, and then I get to like an edge, and it's like, wait a minute, there used to be stars here. Now there's like a cardboard, a 2x4 and a thing. And maybe this could happen intellectually, even spiritually. Do you reach a limit to what the universe is giving you? And then you can say, okay, I've overdone this. I've completed the simulation. All right. Because the alien didn't program beyond my curiosity. And that would be quite the day.
That would be a day. That would
That
certainly
would be a day. It's like the Truman Show. He goes out on the boat and he gets the edge of his universe.
Yes.
That would signal a change in the human condition that I cannot foresee or imagine.
That would be pretty epic. So thank you so much for joining us today,
And
Neil
I'll just
deGrasse
leave you with a
Tyson.
thought. In
Yes.
this, if they find humans entertaining, it could be that they created Earth as a literal terrarium aquarium to put life forms and just sit back and watch it all happen. And maybe they get bored every now and then. They got bored with COVID. They said, throw in monkeypox. Okay. That's my best evidence that we're just entertainment for some.
Yeah, that's God sitting up there with the popcorn.
Yeah, I'm not calling the alien in the basement God. Okay. I'm going to.
Yeah, we could get in trouble with that, so let's not do that. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today, Neil deGrasse Tyson. It has been a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. And this quotes from this interview and excerpts are gonna go be in the Universe issue, which is coming out soon.
Excellent, thank you. And I have a book coming out around then. It's called Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization, and a lot of this point of view is like, what does our behavior look like if you kind of step out to the moon and look down on it? All right. And if you're scientifically literate, what are people doing that they don't even know there's deep inconsistencies in it? So it's an exploration of our mysterious ways as human, and how some form of scientific cosmic enlightenment can make a better world.
That's amazing. So yeah, I guess they'll probably be in Barnes and Noble and Barnes and Noble at least around the same time, or in October.
Oh, possibly on this. Oh yeah. We're next to your magazine.
Yes, awesome. So everybody go out and buy those two things, and you'll be eternally enlightened. Thank you so much for being here.
Excellent.
And
thanks for having me.
Day. Bye.
Bye.